I don't think people realize how crazy it would actually be if WWE went to Warner Bros. Discovery. Now, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put a link somewhere up here. I made a video on the main channel talking about WWE's potential TV deals, and there's 3 potential suitors. Warner Bros. Discovery is apparently one of them. I don't think it's going to happen. Let me get that out of the way. I don't think it's going to happen, right? I don't think so. And I talk about that in the main channel. But the idea is absolutely crazy. It is absolutely crazy to think that potentially AEW could be leaving Warner Bros. Discovery and instead taking its place could be the WWE. Now, I might not think it's happening, but I also understand that anything is possible. And really, it comes down to one thing, and that is money. Yes, AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery has a fantastic relationship. And the reality is their relationship is very good. Warner Bros. Discovery took a chance on a startup wrestling promotion with no TV experience and brought them in. And I think that's a remarkable achievement in its own. But as time has gone on and you look at potential TV deals, I think you have to look at what's going to make the most money. Now, this isn't a shot at AEW, because again, what they've achieved is truly remarkable. But Warner Bros. Discovery, if they're looking at making the most potential money possible, I would say that WWE would make a lot more sense. And the reason why WWE would make a lot more sense is because WWE is the #1 wrestling promotion. If you factor in WWE Raw and NXT and you offer some sort of package deal for them both, I think it could be a very big time move for Warner Bros. Discovery. As much as I love the Warner Bros. Discovery relationship with AEW, the one thing that's always kind of made me questionable about it was Ring of Honor. Because AEW has apparently tried to get Ring of Honor a TV deal, and Warner Bros. Discovery has never committed to it. And instead, AEW has put ROH on their product. But within that relationship, they have Rampage and Collision, something that Warner Bros. Discovery was absolutely in favor of. So the idea of them getting WWE is actually not as far-fetched as a lot of people believe, because WWE, NXT, and Raw could make them a lot of money. At the same time, the reason why it's not realistic really comes down to the NBA. I have a very strong feeling that Warner Bros. Discovery is going to end up retaining the rights to the NBA. And if they retain the rights to the NBA, their budget for acquiring WWE's rights would be very, very expensive. It would be a very expensive price to get the WWE comparative to AEW. Now, I do think for Rampage, Collision, and Dynamite, AEW could potentially get $1 billion. And that's a number that's been floated around for a while. But I think that is a very big possibility. The thing is, with WWE Raw and NXT, we're talking multiple $1 billion. And therefore, you don't spend money if you can't make money. This is the reason why Fox decided not to retain pro wrestling, and instead, SmackDown will be moving to the USA Network. This is also another reason as to why I don't think the USA Network has brought in Raw and NXT. I think Raw and NXT will see an increase in the payout for their TV rights. But if you factor in NBC Universal bringing in NBA and SmackDown, obviously that hurts the chances of what Raw and NXT could get paid. And therefore, it might not make sense for NBC at this time to acquire those TV rights. So when you guys hear me constantly talk about the NBA TV rights, I think it is a very large part of the conversation that some people choose to ignore. But everything is kind of like a wait and see. Which is why it's crazy to think that Warner Bros. Discovery could potentially be a landing spot for Raw and NXT. Because if they lose the TV rights to the NBA, well, first and foremost, Tuesdays and Thursdays would presumably become open time slots, which, by the way, that would actually help AEW and that would help WWE, right? If the NBA doesn't have TBS or TNT on Tuesdays and Thursdays, obviously they can move Collision, Rampage, whatever, or they could put NXT, Raw, whatever, right? But the idea that NBA leaves Warner Bros. Discovery, that opens up the amount of money they can spend. Now, the reality is, without looking at specific numbers, because we don't know how much money AEW makes Warner Bros. Discovery. But if Warner Bros. Discovery loses the NBA TV rights and they pay WWE, let's say $5 billion, hypothetical. But if they pay WWE $5 billion and they pay AEW $1 billion, what are the chances through advertising they can make that money back in, let's say, 5 years? And that right there is the question we don't really know the answer to, because we can't look at the specific numbers of ad revenue and the CPMs for these television networks. So the idea that it is possible WWE could go to Warner Bros. And actually sign a deal, it would be absolutely crazy. But I don't think the likelihood of that would happen if they retain the NBA rights, because obviously AEW would be cheaper for the TV rights deal. And again, we have to go off of hypothetical numbers, because if AEW is getting paid $1 billion for a TV deal, that is still a massive amount of money. They are still going to want to recoup that money. I know a lot of people look at TV ratings and they want to talk about TV ratings as a way to push the narrative for like whatever tribalist bullshit they try to push. But like, SmackDown did great ratings on Fox and it wasn't making Fox money. So we could talk about ratings all day, but what it really comes down to is the money. Who would make Warner Bros. Discovery more money? I think WWE would. What would be the better financial decision? Probably AEW. What would be better for the wrestling industry? Probably WWE not moving to Warner Bros. Discovery, because that means AEW has to find a new television partner. And they have to find a new television partner who would be as good and loyal to them as Warner Bros. Discovery, which makes things a little bit tricky, because Warner Bros. Has pretty much had the support. AEW has had the support of Warner Bros. Discovery since its inception. Just like WWE has had a long-standing relationship with NBC Universal, AEW has had a long-standing relationship with Warner. It's interesting stuff to think about. I personally want to see WWE all in the same network. And I personally want to see AEW all in the same network. I don't like the idea of them having multiple different TV partners and stuff like that. It might be a beneficial business decision, I don't know. But just like my preference, I'd prefer them all in the same network. So AEW could be Warner, WWE could be NBC, and call it a day. But for some reason, it seems like things could be a little bit of a mismatch here. I don't know. It just sounds really crazy to me that there's even a remote possibility that it could happen. And in the event that it did happen, I hope it would not screw over AEW in finding another TV deal, regardless of what you think about the company, regardless if you like the booking, regardless if you like Tony Khan. None of that shit matters. It's better for pro wrestling when all these companies have good TV deals. They're selling out shows, getting good ratings, getting good ticket sales, merch sales, all that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But the TV deal stuff is particularly interesting because there is one thing that we're waiting on. And it looks like the NBA rights, when it comes up, it could be a very expensive TV deal. And depending on how much money they command, could dictate whether or not AEW stays on Warner Bros. Discovery. And it could dictate what happens to Raw and NXT. And you also have to wonder, does WWE not sell a TV package for NXT? Maybe they just put it on Peacock. I don't know. It's really crazy to think that there's a lot of possibilities, but you never say never in pro wrestling. That is one thing I've learned. I want to know what you guys think. Don't forget to click subscribe.